what was your philosophy in fitness that you extracted it from one area of your life and started applying it elsewhere?
I mean, what I took out from fitness to apply elsewhere?
Yeah.
I think very simply the fact that I am my biggest obstacle.
Okay.
And I am putting up the biggest barrier to any sort of growth for myself. That the limits to my potential are mine.
That's nice.
In most cases, right? I just thought I'm just a fat person. I can't be anybody else. Like being fit is genetics. Being fit is only if you're a rich celebrity or if you're a rich sports person or if you're a very good sports person. You can't, be fit otherwise.
Right.
Similarly, when I quit and I started working on my own, there was certain business and revenue goals that I had.
Yes.
These were things that I realized very quickly were false ceilings, right? Artificial ceilings that I put up for myself just because of the fear of failure.
Right.
And I think getting over that has helped me understand that whatever limits I set for myself are the ones that I set for myself. Otherwise, there is so much more potential for growth in every aspect.
Exactly. Okay. So, recording. Shall we start?
Sure.
That's great. So, I thought I'd do an introduction. So, what's happening, guys? Probably I'd edit it out. I wouldn't edit it out. But yes, you guys are listening to the Bangalore Fitness Podcast. And after a lot of scheduling issues, I finally managed to get Pradyum. And I'm really grateful for him coming over, being patient and taking the time to come over. Welcome to the podcast, bro.
Thank you. First ever podcast, so I'm happy to be here.
Yes. I particularly wanted you because you listen to as much as the podcast that I listen to. So or probably more because I've reduced my consumption right now. So it will be very interesting because I love podcasts too. Right.
Podcast itself is something that I've enjoyed listening to for a while, but I think it's only over the last year when there was been a lot more time that's on hand that I've actually started listening to a lot more than I usually did.
Right.
And and it's great that you're creating, content, not just consuming content.
Yeah.
I hope to be there sometime later this year where I'm able to also start and just create a few podcasts.
100%, bro. So I am into content production and I have other podcasts too, but this is something that's dear to my heart, fitness. So I thought, why not start one? And since I have been actually consuming a lot of podcasts, I thought I'd give back to the internet. So that's how I, view podcasts as, right. So for the people who are listening, just a bit of an introduction about yourself.
You want me to give?
Yeah, from your end. No, from your end.
This is the part which I don't even know what to say.
No problem, just play ball.
I'm a fitness trainer.
Right.
I just say I'm a fitness trainer.
Right.
And I try to keep it as concise as possible. So I think that's the easiest thing for me to say.
Sounds good.
Trainer. Yeah,
right.
I've been helping people for the last few years.
Right. I want to just get back again to podcasting. What are your thoughts on podcasting again, if I can ask? Because I want to make sure people who listen, right? I want to get the point through to what do you see in a podcast and podcasting as such that is helpful for you that somebody can take away?
What I've noticed is since I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, I'm able to dig into and listen to and understand the thought process of some really good people who I otherwise would have never ever come across. Right. More than just podcasting, I think it is just the internet that is the enabler for such conversations.
Yes.
And I feel like podcasting is such a great medium for it because it allows for any sort of free-flowing conversation that doesn't need to adhere to a certain standard or set of questions.
Yes.
And it basically gives everyone the opportunity to do what they want to do.
Right.
Which I believe is always it's a net positive. It gives most people the opportunity to kind of create content, but also for people like me who want to consume content.
Yeah.
It kind of removes a lot of the gatekeepers.
Yes. Amen. And give us some of the podcasts you've been listening and you like. Tim Ferriss is one of them.
Actually. Tim Ferriss is one. Not necessarily because of Tim Ferriss himself, but because of the
guests. Yes, definitely.
I feel like I've listened to a lot of his podcasts. I tend to go back and listen to a lot of his older podcasts, and I feel like there is a definite change in the way he's as an interviewer.
Yeah.
Initially, if you just listen to any of his podcasts, you'll notice that he has this tendency to kind of interrupt or add in when one of his guests who are speaking. And off late, in so many of his interviews, he barely talks for a couple of minutes, where the interviewee is the one who's constantly talking for many minutes on end.
Right.
There's also Patrick O'Shaughnessy. Patrick O'Shaughnessy.
Okay.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts that are investment, finance, and entrepreneurship related.
Yes.
More than fitness related. So there's a guy called Patrick O'Shaughnessy, and he runs a very good podcast called Invest Like the Best.
Okay.
And he brings in some, again, people I've never heard of or never heard of if not for this medium. And the topics that they discuss, very interesting. He's again someone who's got very good questionnaire. He doesn't necessarily stick to a script, but he's always very clear in the fact that it is at the end of the day the interviewee who's got the mic, and they're the ones who are going to be constantly talking.
Right.
So he'll ask the question.
What was your philosophy in fitness that you extracted it from one area of your life and started applying it elsewhere?
I mean, what I took out from fitness to apply elsewhere?
Yeah.
I think very simply the fact that I am my biggest obstacle.
Okay.
And I'm putting up the biggest barrier to any sort of growth for myself. That the limits to my potential are my own.
That's nice.
In most cases, right? I just thought I'm just a fat person. I can't be anybody else. Like, being fit is genetics. Being fit is only if you're a rich celebrity, or if you're a rich sports person, or if you're a very good sports person. You can't, be fit otherwise.
Right.
Similarly, when I quit and I started working on my own, there was certain business and revenue goals that I had.
Yes.
These were things that I realized very quickly were false ceilings, right? Artificial ceilings that I put up for myself, just because of the fear of failure.
Right.
And I think getting over that has helped me understand that whatever limits I set for myself are the ones that I set for myself. Otherwise, there is so much more potential for growth in every aspect.
Exactly. I think it's like at the fundamental level, you learn psychology. You just learn psychology without it being taught theoretically. That's how I feel. Because any new thing that I learn, going back to range, David Epstein too, right? Like the minute I understood, I worked on myself, I gave in the hours, and I understood the curve of learning something new. I started applying it to learning new instruments. I started learning it to probably, just understand, reading books for that matter. I know I'm supposed to suck as long as it will. And then slowly, gradually, as I give in, and you sort of understand the overall, this is how it's supposed to feel. Because as a beginner, to get into something or trying to get fit, right, you easily demotivated at the earlier stages because you can't look at what's at the end of it, right? So, but as you understand how the graph works, how it's supposed to look from above, right, I start applying it without very foolhardily, so to speak, right? Learning new instruments and picking up new things. I wouldn't give two fucks for that matter. I just go into it and just start reading, just start doing. The more important thing was giving in the hours so that I'm, sit back and understand compounding, right? That was a good lesson.
Yeah. James Clear has a great quote on
Atomic
this.
Habits.
I think it's maybe from the book, but I think it's been on his blog for a while now. It's about how your current results doesn't matter. What matters is your current trajectory, right? You may be a really fit person, but if you're constantly consuming more than you require, if you're not working out, that trajectory is going to lead you into downfall. Similarly, you may have just started your training, right? And you may think like there's a mountain to climb, which is true, but that trajectory is always going to be helpful for you, right? You're on the right track, so to speak. Also, there's this podcaster called Ira Glass, and he has this wonderful quote which I love. You should look it up. It's a quote about how I can't. It's a fairly lengthy quote. It's an entire paragraph in itself, but it basically talks about how there's a difference between your results and your taste. When you start off, you know you have a certain taste, and you know your initial results are pretty shit, but you know that as you keep working on it, the difference between your taste and your results start reducing and minimizing, and over a period of time, you'll finally get the output that you require and the ones that you have taste for. You've developed a taste by listening to others, watching others, imitating others.
Right.
But just because you started doesn't mean your results will be the same as that. And as you kind of continue developing, the gap between the taste that you have and the results that you get, and the satisfaction you get out of those results will start, shifting.
Right. That's great. So let me ask, consumption, human people eating right now. Let's get into that. What do you generally see people, coming to biases and unconscious behavior? What are they doing wrong as far as you see people, consuming a lot of, like unwanted stuff? Like, what are they doing? Something that's basically wrong in terms of eating and stuff like that. In your clients or people that ask questions to you too, right? What's that common thread?
It's not something that they're doing wrong consciously, but it's the social conditioning that we're in.
Yes, right? Unconscious.
For years we've been told that certain foods are bad, certain foods are junk, certain foods are crap. So there have been labels stuck to foods. The moment you stick labels to foods, you're going down a very, very difficult path, right? If you're someone who's looking to live healthier, and if you're a health-seeking individual, the first objective for you would be to try and reduce or minimize your use of labels. And this again comes down to psychology, right? You labeling foods good, bad, etc., is going to affect you in the long run. You might say this food is junk, I'm never going to eat it. Very few people will actually stick to it. Maybe athletes, elite athletes will be able to stick to that. But if you're a general person who is looking to be health-seeking, you want to be healthy, if you're someone who's eating, say, pani puri or bhel puri every other weekend, but now you think that's junk food, I'm not going to eat it, there's a good chance within 2 weeks you'll go back to eating more of it than you did previously. Yes, you'll eat it the first time after that break, then you'll feel stressed and guilty about it because you've labeled this junk. Now that makes you a bad person because you did something you're not supposed to. And how do most people, cope with stress and anxiety? Most people do it with food. And what sort of foods? Foods that are calorie dense, which most people like calling junk. Yes. So it's a cycle that is never ending if you don't kind of put a conscious, if you don't have a conscious effort to kind of then use the labeling and to try and reduce some of the patterns, especially the invisible patterns that kind of build up over time.
Yeah, right. About sports, I play basketball. Not really professionally, not like just because I enjoy the game, but still I managed to have a good amount of fat and stuff like that. But in my journey to get good at playing basketball, I started going back to the gym. So I started doing stuff that helped me in the court. And going to the gym, sort of, it helped me. I'm like, I could play basketball and call it cardio, and just start with resistance training and stuff. So there was this that symbiotic relationship between like the sports which helped me come back to the gym, and then the gym which helped me the basketball was easier, right? Something like that. How is sports important? As when I ask you these questions, people used to play something in school or college, but then as they started to get work and like they're sitting around and they're working. As I always say, just community and pick up a sport that that you used to play, so that you're passionate about it, and then you spend a couple of hours over the weekend or an hour, so that cardio is like basically done. At least then you can move to resistance and stuff like that. How do you see that?
If someone enjoys playing a sport, they should just go ahead and play a sport. Sports is probably the best form of fitness, in my opinion, in expressing fitness at least. You can continue playing sport for however long you want to. And then with that, obviously, you'll have a knack for just general fitness. So you'll want to try out different forms of training, be it cardio, strength training, whatever else it may be, right? And once you do that, you'll see that there's a direct transfer of your strength and your fitness into your sport. So like you said, that's a good positive cycle to be in. I'm not a fan of pressurizing people into getting into the sport. Some people don't feel like they are made for it. They don't feel good about playing a sport. It is okay. Like, you don't have to play a sport. And sport doesn't necessarily need to be a team sport. It could be something that you do on your own. You could maybe go and take up a squash court and just play it all by yourself. Like, you just play the smashes.
Exactly.
You could do a few laps of the pool if you like that. You could go cycling, you could go walking, it could be anything, right? If I'm always one for one, to encourage physical activities and encourage physical activity that people kind of have affinity to. If a runner comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to start running and I have a plan to kind of run a 10K in the next 6 months,"
right.
If I tell him or her to go and do strength training for 4 days a week and restrict running to 1 day a week, they'll do it for 2 weeks and then they'll never ever talk to me about it again. So it has to come from within. It has to be something that they enjoy. And trying out different sports, if they really want to try out different sports, trying out different sports is a good way of starting out. Again, it comes down to range, right? Play different sports, trying to figure out what you like most.
Yes.
I love playing squash. I love playing badminton. I love playing football. So if I get the opportunity to do either of the three, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But I don't force myself to kind of only do that.
Right. Yeah, and as you say, as you play different sports, you'll have a lot of friends and community as you get into so that helps too. Like a lot of people surrounding you, and you're almost having fun. Basically, that's how I look at it. Not even getting paid.
I think it comes down to who the person is, right? Their personality at the end of the day. I've always been someone who's out there wanting to be playing or meeting new people, making acquaintances, etc. Versus someone who may be a lot quieter, who likes their own space. And the same person could be both. Like, you could have one person who is active and who's really out there a major part of their time, but also at the same time wants their own space, doesn't want to do it. But yes, for me, sports has always been fun because it's good because in most team sports, you get to play with the team, you kind of understand egos at a very young age. You understand how to kind of compromise and focus on the greater good, which is the team. So, I mean, if you're not playing professionally, it's just about playing for fun. It's always great.
Yeah. And as a coach, you assess too, right? You assess. You get better at assessing your client. Is he an introvert, an extrovert, and how do you design something for them that is more suitable for that specific person? And that's where you come in, right?
Not assess their personality types per se, but try and understand their
what's comfortable for them,
deep, underlying forces, right? What is it that is driving them to want to be healthier? If someone comes up to me and says, 6 years ago, I used to play football every other day, twice a week. Now I can barely go down the staircase without huffing and puffing. I understand where the person is coming from. Someone else could be like, before I had my kid, I was so and so. Now, this is where I am and this is what I would like to do. Understanding that is important. So the personalization happens not necessarily on the personality type, but trying to understand their deepest desires and why they're having it.
Right.
So, one of the things that I've kind of learned over the last few years is psychology is a subject not where you give answers at all. You are the ones asking questions. They are the ones giving you the answers. So the more questions you ask, the better you get an understanding of their psychology.
Right. Interesting. Okay, on to my next question. I'm almost winding up. The Bangalore fitness landscape, right? In my journey to podcasting I just started off because I like all sorts of physical movements, and then I found it as as a way to connect and see what's happening in the Bangalore scene. So in my journey, I interviewed people doing yoga, calisthenics, trekking, and I want to get more people over too. So how do you see it? What's happening? There's like a bustling community of people doing various stuff, which is very interesting. How have you seen it?
So if I was to take investing terminology here, I would say I'm long on the fitness community, not just in Bangalore, but just in India. I feel like there's a thriving community already, and the awareness has increased over the last few years for sure. People who had never heard of the term strength and conditioning now speak it.
Yes.
People who would never have worked out now go out and work out. People have understood the importance of being fit. I've understood the importance of going to gyms, ensuring that they are able to spend time working in the fitness. And for anyone who's already in this industry, I think we know that things are very good in most cases. For people who want to get into the industry, again, there's so much opportunity. And I believe there's opportunity not just in the major cities, but even in cities that are tier 2 and tier 3, maybe in the rural areas. Because once you kind of understand who your target audience is, you can then kind of personalize stuff for them. For example, we're having this in English, right? We're having this conversation in English.
Yes.
Majority of the country will not listen to this or even understand it.
Yes.
Same with all fitness professionals that you may know online, on social media. Everyone communicates in English.
Yeah.
But if you go vernacular, the market just becomes that much bigger.
Opens up, right? Explodes.
Yeah. If, say, a Kannadiga instructor speaks only Kannada.
I'm on to that.
Tamil instructor, only speaks in Tamil, right? With nutrition or training, that is a huge market in itself.
Yeah.
And like I said, the more people come online, the more Indians kind of get exposed to the internet and see the benefits of the internet.
Yeah.
The more opportunities will come up, and at the same time, things that we won't even have thought of right now will happen in the next 5 years, 10 years, and so on.
Right. And given the pandemic, it's pushed a lot of people to get their own phones and stuff like that, and they are coming on board onto the internet, right? And they need information in their own language.
Data has ensured that cheap phones, cheap data. We are the largest consumers of data in the world, I think, right now, from what I read. And we pay the cheapest, we have the cheapest rates as of now, which is great. And it's only, I think it's inevitable that a lot of it will be used for the goods, right? And many will seek out opportunities here and will have positive influences on more people as we go ahead. Like right now in my life, I would have never thought of it 4 years ago. I never would have thought that online coaching is even a viable product for our country, or, in this field. But now I know so many who just never ever meet their clients.
Yeah.
They've probably never seen them at all, never interacted apart from text messages. Yeah, and not just provide value, but they have thriving, very successful businesses.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's that it's in that we're in that sort of scenario where we are a lot more confident in our own abilities versus looking constantly to the West or elsewhere, trying to see what they're doing and trying to see how we can do something similar.
Yes.
I think the internet kind of opens up the opportunities where everyone can be successful in the fitness industry. They can take a small niche and there's enough space for everyone.
Right, exactly. And again, going back to range, it's like I almost think of it as a byproduct of the internet opening up. People, getting very access for information stuff, so that the more they search on the internet, the more they are like grounded in terms of like decisions that you can make with the ready access of internet, right? And I want to ask, you as an entrepreneur, as trying to go out, what were the earlier some kind of roadblocks? Would I call it roadblocks or something like that? Some difficulty that you faced? Was there anything like that?
I don't think so, actually, honestly. Like, the difficulty was there, but, you know, I come from a middle class family, so
Right.
I had enough backing in the sense that I didn't have to worry about a roof over my head or,
Yes.
having to pay for my food, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So I could take that decision of
Plunge.
quitting and starting on my own. I was very much fortunate in that instance where, I could take that decision, right?
Right.
Not many people are. So whenever I come across my friends and former colleagues, acquaintances, and I see that they're not taking advantage of this privilege,
Yes.
I kind of push them to do so. So I didn't have any of the obstacles that people who come from really poor backgrounds or
Yes.
say low middle class or lower class backgrounds would.
Yeah.
My obstacles were there, but they were fairly, like, you could say, first world obstacles.
Right.
They were
Yeah.
not really like
But in terms of
on the footpath sort of obstacles.
but in terms of getting clients or like the marketing part on the internet, it doesn't really come intuitively. So you have to go out there and just learn the dynamics of the internet in order to understand how it works, right? So that too was a curve, I believe, right?
For sure. Again, I worked as a CrossFit coach for about 5 years.
Mm.
So my base and foundation was there. So when I quit with knowing that there are a certain number of clients who will be working with me post that. So I didn't quit on a whim. I didn't quit without any thought behind it. I made sure that I judged the pros and cons and decided that the pros were well worth the cons, right? And I quit. So I knew that there'll be people who will follow me, and some of them are still my clients. Some of them are still people I constantly talk to, even though we're not training as much. I'm still very grateful for them for the fact that they allowed me to kind of take this journey. And even now, like, it is weird to say this, but I did good work then. So I'm kind of still reaping the benefits now, because people from that I coached in 2014, 2015, 2016 still reach out to me and either send me new clients or kind of train with me or come back to me for training. So I've not had too many issues in terms of either starting on my own or getting in new clients.
Right.
I think once you get a few clients, word of mouth is good enough. All you need to do is ensure that you do a good job.
Right.
That
Right.
they will themselves bring you more clients.
Nice. Yes, I've completely run out of questions. Before I finish, I want to ask another off-topic question, because coming from the posts that I see you posting too, you post about financial literacy too, like, just a bit of an understanding about financial literacy. Why I ask this question is predominantly, again, all of us are, they want us to become doctors or do science or engineering, but in somewhere in that rush to do all of that, we are sort of not, made understood the importance of financial literacy and everything that relates around it, which I partially learned through books and podcasting as such. Seeing through your stories and stuff, you too, what I believe you were talking about it, right? Any words on that front to people who are listening?
I mean, personal finance and financial literacy is something that anyone who's listening to this podcast, watching it on Instagram, social media, if you're understanding English, you should definitely start studying or reading about that subject. Having no knowledge of the subject does not mean that you never start, right? If you see someone who's extremely unhealthy, just because they don't know what to do to become healthy doesn't mean you don't help them out. Right? Same with you. Financial literacy is such a key part of your life. The other day I was just talking to my friend, and I was telling her that your expenses are forever. Your income is short-lived.
Yeah.
Right?
Fixed.
So keep that in your mind throughout. You will never have recurring income unless you start focusing on your finances and ensuring you're investing and saving. Like, you will be working, but if you're in the pandemic, you're laid off, there's no guarantee you're getting a job again, right? But your expenses don't change. You still have to pay for your rent, mortgage, or your food, or whatever else, right? Yeah, your lifestyle, exactly. So expenses are forever. But be it whether you're 29 or 99. You can't depend on, hoping that your kids will take care of you.
Right.
You want to be as self-sufficient and self-dependent as possible. And understanding this and understanding personal finance one-on-one is the key. And I didn't know this either.
Yes.
But I had a penchant for kind of just reading more on this, and it was a very intriguing subject for me. And now it's just like an obsession almost, where I want to try and improve more people's financial literacy. And it may seem like, oh, there are so many things going on, I don't know where to start, but it isn't really all that difficult. It's a fairly simple thing. I'm creating a document which I'm going to be sharing for free with everyone who wants to understand it. So when it's complete, I'm just going to put it out so more people kind of get the help that they require.
Yes.
Have an understanding of what personal finance is and where they can start. Just like how I got help when I started.
Yes. That's great, bro. Is there anything that I haven't touched upon that you would like to say, or any message that you want to say, people who are listening?
I think it's great. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I am glad that the fitness bit was restricted to a small part and it's not about everything else.
Yeah.
Because I feel I am someone who talks about fitness fairly often because so it's always fun to kind of dig into the other aspects,
Definitely.
Books, even finances.
I don't usually get to do this, that's why.
Yeah, happy to kind of maybe do a second part in a few months' time.
Definitely, bro.
Who knows, what changes in the next 6 months.
Exactly, right? So definitely. We can sit and talk like more about books and stuff, or I can get you over the book club podcast probably, and we can do an episode there too. Right. Pradyum, that was really great. For people who want to find you, where can they find you on the internet?
I think on Instagram right now, that's where I am. But they can also kind of subscribe to my newsletter and give you a link. On Instagram, I'm Coach Pradyum, so it's fairly simple to find. Website should be up in a few weeks. I've been saying this for all of 2020, but this is the year it's done. And they can find me there when it's ready. But again, thanks for having me. My first ever podcast.
Pleasure's mine.
This is a lot of fun. If I ever do any other podcast, I'm going to have to compare to how this went.
Thank you.
It sets up a pretty high bar for them.
I would say it's a note to the podcast that we both listen. So yeah.
For sure. I mean, this was fun. Now this is kind of getting me to kind of think about how I can start my own podcast with
definitely
discuss topics.
Exactly. And I would obviously think a podcast by you two would be brilliant. So I'd want you to start one immediately. That's what I tell everybody who says, I want to start a podcast. Bro, just go ahead. You want a logo? I'll send you a logo or something like that. Just let's go for it. That's the first step. The logo is the first step for me. So that's why. Great. Thank you, bro. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you for coming over. Thank you for your patience, especially. Thank you. Loved it.
Take care. See you soon.
Yes, bro. See you. I'm going to stop recording. See you.